Hey there, Daniel from GrowYourMusicStudio.com. In this video, we are talking about two more categories of business growth. We've been talking about these last week. I'm going to continue talking about this week. People, studio owners, mistakenly believe that there's really one lever to get more students, and that is marketing and sales. And what I want to show, what my goal is in these videos, is to show you there's actually 9 different levers of studio growth, some of which most studio owners don't even think about, don't even have a conception that it's a possibility for them. So in this video, I'm covering 2 more of those. I've talked about marketing, I've talked about business models, capital and assets, strategy. Today, we're going to be talking about 2 more. Now, again, don't foolishly believe that there's just one way to grow, and that's marketing. We have 9 different ones, and let me tell you also what I'm not saying, okay? There's this belief that branding is a actual category. Branding is actually not one of these, and I just want to point out here that branding, in my opinion, is a waste of time. As branding is properly defined, that is just getting your name out there, and I am actually a big critic of that particular viewpoint. I don't believe there's any reason to just get your name out there, try to show who you are. You actually need to connect who you are and what you want to an action, and that action is actually signing up for lessons. So if you read a book or get advice, or someone out there is preaching that you need to brand your studio, I would just say, I would kind of run from that information, because you actually need to connect what you're doing to an action. I have not put branding as a priority in my studio. I've not put branding as a priority in other people's studios that I consult for. And I've actually put getting actual money in the door as a priority, and have found that to work very, very well. Now, it could be that someone's using branding generally and they're just using that as a shorthand for marketing. Once again, I would be a little concerned of taking advice from someone that doesn't understand the difference between branding and marketing, or just having a nice graphic design or a nice logo for your business. So I'm just going to kind of put that out there. The second thing is education is not the educational component of your music school or music studio is not a lever for growth. So I'm not trying to solve business problems with educational answers, just kind of putting that out there. Okay, having said that, having gotten that out of the way, here are today's 2 categories. The first one is relationships. And again, this is a lever of business growth. I want to kind of put this out here first, that this might seem like common sense, like, oh, relationships are important, that's how I'll get students, or that's how I'll get referrals, or that's how I'll hire more staff for my music school. I'm elevating this above kind of the common sense of that. I'm elevating this to a category as important as marketing. So understand that when I talk about relationships, I'm not just saying, oh, hey, try to get some word of mouth referrals. I'm actually elevating this to a higher level. I want to view this just as important. I want to see this just as important as marketing. If you put as much emphasis and attention and effort into viewing relationships that your business has, viewing relationships that you have, if you view that as just as important as marketing, you're going to get outsized results on the execution of the ideas I'm about ready to give you. So let's start out with something easy. One of the first things and obvious things you can do as a studio owner is find people in your industry, but outside of your market. And that's kind of abstract. Really what I'm saying is look for peers or colleagues which you can get ideas from. Well, this is exactly what we do in piano teacher Facebook groups all the time. People get on there every single day, ask for advice, ask for wisdom, ask for strategies or techniques that other teachers are using, and that's great. Here's what I want to say about that. I want to go farther than that. I don't think this is enough. Most people, when they get information, don't act on the information. This is something I've kind of talked a little bit about in the previous videos that I've done. Perfect example, and I'm going to tell a story on myself here. I made a New Year's resolution, beginning of 2017, made a New Year's resolution to have better posture. And I Googled things, I looked things up, I thought of what I could do to make this a reality, and didn't do anything in January, didn't do anything in February, in March. every once in a while would look at the list of goals that I had for 2017 and would see that, and I thought, oh yeah, I've got to take care of that. Here's the truth. The product that I've been thinking of buying that kind of helps with poor posture, I finally got it at the beginning of December when I had an oh shoot moment as I was thinking about what was the fact that we're basically on 2018, and I thought of the shame I was going to have, the self-hatred I would have because I did not act on the resolution I had at the beginning of 2017. In the same way, okay? Funny story, but here's how that applies in a much more deadly way to your studio, and that is this. Oftentimes we get information, we can read blogs, we can read books, we read a lot of different things, and we use that as a way to entertain our brains. We use that as a way to kind of salve our conscience that we've moved towards something, but then we don't actually act on the information. So oftentimes what I see happening in the Facebook groups is that teachers and school owners are just using that as a proxy to solve tiny problems, but they're not getting at the bigger problems that they have in their studio, or they're not tackling bigger problems that they have that they are aware that they have. So that just is kind of as a first thought. Yes, I love the groups. You're probably seeing me because of the groups. One of the main ways that people have found my blog is through things that people have posted to the groups. They've shared articles that I've written. I've shared articles that I've written. But I want to move beyond that and say masterminding is a huge, huge benefit. And that is just finding a group of like-minded studio owners like yourself, perhaps some that are a little bit above you or a little bit farther down the path, maybe a few a little bit behind you, where you have accountability. And I've been involved in groups like that. In fact, even this year have been involved in groups, or in a group that I actually paid money to be involved in, a business mastermind. Incredibly helpful for me, and would definitely recommend anyone. So that is one way to leverage relationships to get ahead, to get closer to the goals that you want to get to. You can leverage past relationships with students or student families to find great assistants or great teacher assistants or just great teachers for your studio. I'm involved with a studio in suburban Virginia called the Piano Express, and they have actually leaned upon past students of the studio for teacher assistants for that studio. They have leaned on parents in that studio to help them, so they actually got one of their administrators of the studio from their pool of students. So leverage relationships there. Leverage relationships within your social circles. And here's what I mean. Find people that you know that have a business that is in a different industry, and then use that relationship and find out what sorts of things those people are doing in their industry to get clients. Find what people are doing in that industry to solve problems that they have. How do they get leads? How do they get new clients? How do they solve cash flow problems? How do they do invoicing? We can learn a lot from people in other industries. So leverage social circles in that way. Okay, so that was the first one, relationships. Second one is distribution channels. And I'm just going to take a pause for just one moment to say that oftentimes when people think of distribution channels, they think of a large corporation like Apple or Wal-mart. Think of big corporations like that actually have products that they're selling in other people's stores. And when you think about this as a category, something that a music studio could do, I don't think this is something that a studio owner would necessarily say, oh yeah, distribution channels, that's exactly what I need to be working on. It's probably overlooked as a category. But what I will tell you is that there are principles within the idea of having a distribution channel that we can use as studio owners. One in which, once I got a hold of this, it materially changed the way that I thought about advertising and marketing my studio. And I will tell you that within all the literature and all the advice I've seen, books, other blogs besides mine, I have never once seen this written about. And I think it's a very powerful strategy. It's one that I've used from time to time, and when I have used it, it has been incredibly powerful for me. So let me stop teasing and let me actually tell you what it is. The way that big companies look about distribution is how they view their partners. And the information they're getting about customers. And so this is what I'm going to say. When you purchase a product, well, let's just say if you purchase a chair from a store, that store more than likely gets your information in some way. They get it through registering your warranty. They might ask it for you at the point of sale, at the cash register. They might get it through your credit card data, whatever. Your name's on a list now. And what you'll often find is that you begin getting emails and catalogs from those people over a long, long period of time because they realize they bought once, it's more likely that they're going to come back and buy a second time. How can we use that mindset to help our studios? Well, here's the deal. There are companies out there that have lists of consumers categorized in a myriad of different ways. And something that we can do, and again, I just haven't seen it used. Even big music schools, I have not found to be using the strategy. You can go to one of these list brokers and rent or buy lists of names for any particular demographic that you want. You can do it based on income. You can do it based on location. You can do it based on things they purchased in the past, whether there's presence of children in the families. And while using Facebook ads can actually, you can kind of tap into that demographic data within Facebook ads. I'm talking about actually buying either their physical location, so their home address, or you can purchase lists that have their email address on it. By the way, this is legal. I'm not recommending that we do anything illegal. This is out there. It's free. It's covered by federal law in the U.S. This is completely legal. And what I recommend that studio owners do, if they're looking to really blanket an area with an offer to come into the studio for an intro lesson, or if you want to promote a summer camp or some sort of offer you have, go to one of these list brokers, buy the list, make sure that demographically and locationally it's in an area that makes sense. Don't buy it for someplace 50 miles from you, even though it's in the same state. Buy this list and create a great email and send an email out. I don't recommend buying lists of physical addresses. And this is another area I mentioned at the front end. Watch out for people who talk about branding. I would also say watch out for people who talk about direct mail. Again, direct mail works. It's probably not the first solution you should go for. It's much more expensive than digital advertising. And again, if someone's recommending, hey, direct mail, it works, you should do this, be wary. I would maybe even run from that advice because there are so many things, especially for the small to mid-sized studio, there's so many much more economical, cost-effective ways to get your studio in front of other people, to get actual students. There's so many more economical, cost-effective ways to get that information out there than going straight for expensive mailing campaigns that you can't stop if they're not working, that you can't test to see if they're going to work. So that's the thought there. So I have used this personally in my studio, almost done here. I have used this personally in my studio when I have wanted to get a lot of students very quickly. This is not something I go to as a first solution. This is when I'm wanting to get a lot of people all at once. There was a time a few years ago when I wanted to bump from 75 to 95, and I wanted to do it very, very quickly, and this is the solution I turned to. Going to a much more, I'm trying to think of even the word that I would use for this, going to a much more hardcore solution like this. So those are my thoughts for today. As I mentioned before, I'm doing a live video every single weekday until the end of December. Even while I'm on Christmas break and out of town, doing a live video each day. If you have questions or comments about anything I've said here today, write that in the box below. If you like this video, if it was helpful, just give me the thumbs up, hit the like. That really, really helps me out. Love your comments. If you have a question, might answer it in a future live video or might just come into the comments later and answer that. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. And I'll see you on tomorrow's video. Bye-bye.